As we look around the United States, we often think, has a better country ever been led by worse people? Probably not. So in our spare time, we've looked around the world. We try from time to time to bring leaders on this show from other countries who actually care about their people. That's why we went to Hungary this summer to talk to Viktor Orban. But he's not the only one. When we spoke to Orban, he mentioned other countries in Central Europe that have defended their populations against international interference. And one of the countries he mentioned was Poland. In the last few nights in Budapest, I've run into a number of Americans who have come here because they want to be around people who agree with them, who agree with you. Do you see Budapest as a kind of capital of this kind of thinking?
The capital of that kind of thinking, or one of the capitals, because the other Central European countries are also very competitive and producing very nice ideas and organizing that kind of communities of conservative and Christian Democrats thinkers as we do.
Andrzej Duda is the president of Poland, and we're honored to be joined by him right now. Mr. President, thank you so much for joining us. We know that you're watching what's happening in the United States, and you're watching this massive flow of migrants over our border. It will total over 1 million just this year. Something very similar happened to Europe in 2015. The EU pressured Poland and other nations in Central Europe to accept, and Poland fought back. Tell us why you did that.
The answer is very simple. We did not agree back then in 2015 to the so-called quota system, which was proposed by some of the EU member states, which means that every single country would have to accept a given number of migrants. And we gave a very clear answer to that. Whoever wants to come to Poland, whoever is looking for help, assistance, especially refugees who are looking for shelter because they are threatened by war, persecuted in their own countries, if they want to come to Poland, we want them to stay in Poland, live in Poland. Well, to accept such a person and to help them, we did not agree to relocate Poland people by force. We do not agree to keep these people in prison. If these people did not want to stay in Poland, they would want to leave. And we're not going to make anybody stay. We're not going to keep anybody against their will.
The American President Joe Biden, before he became president, described Poland as unfree, as an authoritarian place. How have your dealings with the Biden administration been since he's become president?
What you just said is indeed a very regrettable thing, because there are a lot of lies spread about Poland. And the first and foremost, what some representatives of the Polish opposition are saying about the current Polish government is totally untrue. And the best proof of that is in the fact that the incumbent government has won the election. They won the election back in 2019. I simply said, people are happy with their government right now. They think that this government cares for their interests, that this government keeps electoral promises, and this is why they were reelected. But of course, some representatives of the opposition are really furious because they are not able to win elections. As I have said, they lost twice in a row. They also lost the presidential election. So because of that, they are slandering the current political camp. But let me reiterate, fortunately, it is the people who choose.
Finally, let me ask you about Poland's family policy. So Poland, from the outside, appears to have decided to help encourage Polish couples to have children. Please tell us what you're doing and why you've done it.
The Constitution stipulates that marriage, it says a union of a man and a woman and family are protected by the government in a special way. So the first time since 1989, we have embarked upon a very resolute and vast pro-family action. And when I was running for president back in 2015, I also made a pledge, and I said that we would start a pro-family policy. We actually announced myself during the campaign, and later I was joined by my colleagues who were also running for the parliamentary election. So we pledged that we would introduce a program by the name of 500 Plus. It is a welfare program for families in its initial version. We were testing, actually. We decided that starting from the second child in a family, parents of every child monthly receive 500 zlotys, sum of $130, a kind of welfare for many from the state in raising children. This program was revolutionized in Poland. I think nobody can imagine not to have the 500 Plus program in Poland. That was the best thing, definitely the best social program that we have been able to introduce. But to me, a politician, speaking openly, I consider myself to be rather conservative, and I actually was always frank about my views. I'm a Christian. I'm a practicing Christian. I pray. I'm not ashamed of that whatsoever. And to me, the value of family is priceless. I do support families. I'm pro-life. I defend life. I believe that life is sacred. I believe it should be guarded, and families have to be supported as strong as they can, because family is the foundation of every nation. Everything is based on family. Therefore, the support with which we offer families for the political perspective, from my personal perspective, is key importance. We also have used other programs supporting families. We support parents with their child starting schools with programs dubbed 300 zlotys. So we pay 300 zlotys to the parents of every child going to school to buy a set of books, a rucksack, and pens, pencils, stationery, whatever the child needs starting school. That is a very difficult moment when the school year begins. We know that families have to spend more money, so it turned out that 300 zlotys is important for the families. And it also contributes quite big support on top of the 500 plus, which every family gets per child.
It's inspiring to hear that. I wish we had it. Mr. President, thank you for sitting down and talking to us tonight. We appreciate it. It's good to see you.
Thank you very much, and my best greetings to you.
Hey, Sean Hannity here. Hey, click here to subscribe to Fox News YouTube page and catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis. You will not get it anywhere else.